Welcome in, Dween Nation. We are the Dween Sports Podcast, and we are just about to get started. But before we do, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, and share so we can continue to be your fantasy sports podcast. Thanks for being part of Dween Nation, and enjoy the show.
Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Pies, alongside Janoah Agudelo, and Week 5 is here, and we're going to discuss our starts and our sits of the week, going quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, even the kicker, as well as our sits of the week. Super excited to dive into all of that. No matter what record you are, maybe you're 4-0 and you're on top of the world, or you're on the bottom of the world and you're 0-4, or you're somewhere in between. You need these starts and sit videos to help you make your lineups, to help you win your fantasy football championships. We are super excited to dive into all of it. But before we do, how you doing, Janoah?
Yo, Dween Nation. Listen, I am doing so good. It is week 5. And like you mentioned, if you're 0-4, 4-0, 3-1, 2-2, I think in every part of the standings, whatever league you're in, a 10-man, 12-man, 14-man, Justin, I think that you still have a chance to make the playoffs. This is week 5, and this is what I like to call the crazy part of the season. From week 5 to week 11, you kind of have the new tier of fantasy stars just taking over. This kind of, Justin, would dictate the draft order of players going into next season. Like we're looking at Ibuka and Roma Dunze are players that are going to be taken in the first 2 rounds next year. And I think they're going to prove themselves furthermore in the next couple of weeks. And not only that, Justin, there's some players that we're going to talk about today that could be mentioned as far as top 3 picks in the first 2 rounds next year, in the first 3 rounds. These are players that are now being moved up the fantasy rankings and will now possibly win you your fantasy championship this year. And it starts this week. I'm so excited to talk about it.
No, I completely agree. The amount of good players thus far in this season that have shown to be top players, like you said, Roma Dunze, who you got in probably, the 7th, 8th round, George Pickens, Quentin Johnston is a top 5 wide receiver right now, and Emeka Egbuka finds himself in the top 10, Trey Tucker. I think the even weirder one is if you look at the tight end position, none of the top, 5 tight ends are currently top 5. The top 5 is currently Tucker Kraft, Hunter Henry, Jake Ferguson, Dalton Kincaid, and Tyler Warren. So the season, it's crazy, okay? And we're only 4 weeks in. So let's dive into our starts here and really just show you who's the best matchups this week, and just the great plays here. We'll start at quarterback, where I have Sam Darnold. And yes, going into the year, candidly, I was a little pessimistic. I was a little like, maybe it was just that Kevin O'Connell rub that made him look like a really good quarterback. But he finds himself here in Seattle with Clint Kubiak, who I think is a really good play caller, and what seems to now be a really good assortment of weapons. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker. Charbonnet's been a little injured, but even Torrey Horton and Cooper Kupp still got it. And if you look at his matchup this week, they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You can't ask for a much better matchup than that at home in front of their 12th man. But they need to get this win. I mean, we'll see the Rams and 49ers on Thursday Night Football. But the 49ers are really injured. The Cardinals suck. And so it's just Seattle and the Rams to me that are right now duking it out to win this division. And so I think Seattle's in a really good spot. And I think Sam Darnold, who's looked really good this year, is in a great spot to hit this week.
Yeah, Justin, I love Sam Darnold this week. This is a great matchup. I mean, how about these 2 teams matching up in Seattle? Tampa Bay Buccaneers come to visit. And Seattle, they're having a good time right now with their Mariners in the playoffs. And I heard there's some parking, extravaganzas that is going on with the 2, stadium in the ballpark. So I feel like Sam Darnold, he's filling the firecrackers. And, it's kind of like a Jared Goff thing, Justin, where Sam Darnold can be okay on the road, but when he's at home, he is a great quarterback when he has those targets, all healthy, you mentioned. And you know what? I think a player that you mentioned that's starting to catch my attention is number 15, Torrey Horton there. He has become a second go-to guy for Sam Darnold. It's similar to Jordan Addison last year, a little bit of Jalen Naylor in the first 5 weeks when he was in Minnesota last year. And I love it. I think he's home. He's got JSN. You know what? They don't really need to run the football because I think Baker and company, they're going to be firing up with Ibuka, who's another obviously start of the week as well, which it's a no-brainer right on this episode. This is going to be a great matchup there in Lumen Field. I love Darnold. I love Baker. It's a showdown of 2 quarterbacks that were once in Carolina, once both top 5 picks, might have been in the same draft there, Justin. And they both got dumped by the team that drafted them. Were journeymen, learned. One went through Sean McVay, the other one through O'Connell, and now they're kind of revival quarterbacks that can now lead you to a wild card berth, a divisional round appearance. So love that for both quarterbacks. Sam Darnold is obviously start of the week. I love it. For me, Justin, I'm going to go right into mine, and I'm going to talk about Justin Fields. The last time Justin Fields pretty much was healthy and had a good matchup, it was week 1. And I think he's going to have a great matchup this week. It's against the Cowboys at home. The Jets are 0-3, and Aaron Glenn, honestly, he's looked kind of like as the best 0-3 head coach. I feel like he's been in some matchups that didn't really favor them, and it just kind of went south. Obviously, you lose your quarterback week 2. He's out, he's hurt, so I feel like you couldn't really win football games. But now that he's back, he has a great matchup. It's one of those 12 o'clock games, those early Sunday games that are shootouts. I think that Dak, there's no CeeDee Lamb. He's going to need to have another performance just like this. It's one of those things where both teams are fighting for a win. I don't think defense is really a thing here. And I think that Justin Fields, he's going to get you some touchdowns off the ground. He's going to throw it to Garrett Wilson. He's got some targets he can look forward to. And I think there's going to be a random wide receiver that scores for the Jets. But still, it's going to be credited to Justin Fields. He can run. He can throw. The Cowboys matchup is really attractive here at MetLife. They're 0-3. I got to go with Justin Fields.
No, I think that's a great play. I feel in my own rankings that I post on TikTok, Dween Nation, I have Justin Fields at quarterback 3 on the week behind, I believe, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. His rushing ability is just too good to deny. And honestly, I'll be quite honest. Watching that game on Monday Night Football against the Dolphins, they're not a pretty watch. The Jets are not, to me, a fun team that I was, oh my gosh, on the edge of my seat watching. Then they have that big rushing touchdown. Obviously, that play was phenomenal. But this team is not the prettiest team, but Justin Fields just gets fantasy points. And he goes from a great matchup in the Dolphins on Monday. He actually played really well, put up over 28 points in fantasy. Now you get the 32nd ranked defense. So everything you're saying, I'm completely on board with. I like Justin Fields. Our show sponsor for Starts and Sits is Aspire Drinks. If you go to aspiredrinks.com, using the code Dween, you can save 15% on all of your orders. I just bought a 27-pack variety edition because there's so many different good flavors. It's green tea power energy drinks, less caffeine, more benefits, the refreshingly unextreme energy. Go and get some today using code Dween, and let's get back to the video. This week, we'll jump to the running backs, where I have somebody on his team, and it is Breece Hall. And for this guy, I'm really waiting for that big explosive game. I know he has it in him. Obviously, he was, RB1 or 2 a couple years ago. And he's got the Dallas Cowboys, which is, again, one of the best matchups you can ask for as a fantasy manager for your player. And unfortunately, with the Braylon Allen news, he's on IR now, going to miss 4 weeks. So those goal line touches are going to go to Breece Hall now. I do think there will be an uptick in usage for Isaiah Davis, their third down back. But I think that Breece Hall should have 20-plus points in this game. He's talented enough. The team's offensive line is solid enough. I just hope that it kind of happens. Because last week, he didn't get in the end zone. He had 81 yards rushing on 14 carries. I think he had 5 receptions. So it's like a solid day, but we're waiting for that big game, and I think this is the week.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this matchup there, Justin. I just pray with the Jets. Please, I just hope no surprise injuries. Please just stay healthy. I feel like with the Jets, we're so excited for them every year, and there's this injury that happens. You're having a good Sunday, the matchup is going good, and all of a sudden your Jet player gets injured. I just feel like I hope Justin Fields can stay healthy. Justin Fields and Breece Hall are healthy. They're going to eat, no doubt. For me, I'm gonna talk about a running back that I think is going to eat really good this week. He did have a good game last week. I just think his teammate Jahmyr Gibbs had a better matchup, but I think this week favors more Montgomery. And when you look at the Lions there, Justin, I feel like Dan Campbell kind of has this year orchestrated because he knows this team's going to possibly get to the playoffs. It's looking like, they could win their division. They look really good, beating the last 2 teams on what they were doing. Obviously, it's the Browns and the Ravens, but still, the Lions in the first couple weeks have shown they are still that top tier NFC team that you cannot forget about. And they have a good running system there. And I think this week is going to favor Montgomery on the road against Cincinnati. I love the matchup. I think he's going to get all the goal line carries. I think last week it was more of the Gibbs matchup, and I kind of felt that way. I promise you guys, Dween Nation, I had this feeling it was going to be more of the Gibbs matchup, at home. But now they're on the road. Cincinnati's not really that good, really. They've let Jordan Mason shred them up. And even RJ Harvey had a good matchup against him on Monday night with J.K. Dobbins going 100 yards. So I think with multiple running backs, it's proven that you can shred Cincinnati. And Jared Goff is not really the quarterback to have a major, huge game on the road. So I think they're going to lead on the running game. Kind of looked at 2 weeks ago when they were in Baltimore. It was kind of that running game where Gibbs and Montgomery were getting in the end zone. And I think Montgomery, he really feasted against that team on the road. So I feel like 2 weeks ago was that matchup. Now You get time for Montgomery to not really have a great game. You only have, barely 2 fantasy points last week against the Browns. So, this week it's more of the Monty show. People are thinking, this is going to be Gibbs, which obviously Gibbs, you're starting him. He's probably going to have a touchdown. But I think Monty's going to kind of dominate the goal line touches in this matchup.
Yeah, I completely agree. Montgomery is a great running back. He just ran into what is honestly a wall in that Cleveland Browns rushing defense. They might be one of the best rushing defenses I've seen through 4 games ever. I'm not even kidding. They are stopping every running back in their path. The reason Gibbs had a good matchup is he's a little bit more explosive on the outside, and he gets receptions. That's not Montgomery's game most of the time, and so you had to rely on him getting yards through his carries. But Cleveland's just too good as a rush defense. So that's why last week was bad. I wouldn't look at him badly from that, so I think that you're okay there. And yeah, you're right. The matchup this week is too good, and the Lions are going to be in a big lead, so I like Montgomery too.
Yeah, I do want to also add in, we also see Rachaad White here at the bottom. I also like him. The only thing is that Bucky, unfortunately, he's probably going to be out for a couple of weeks. It's looking like, just there's reports that he's walking around in a boot. And so I couldn't decide between Montgomery or Rachaad White here, who's slated to start. And he's looked good during the season. I know against my Texans, he looked pretty good in the second half game on Monday night a few weeks ago. With Bucky in the lineup, they used him a lot. They gave him a lot of carries up the middle and goal line carries. And I think this is a week that Baker's going to need to establish the run so he can have I think Baker's going to have a great game himself with Ibuka, but I think it's going to also be developed through this run attack because Seattle is a pretty good team. So I don't think you can beat them all the way through the passing game. So I feel like they're going to be running the ball. A lot of Rachaad White. He's fresh. He's got fresh legs. He didn't get a lot of usage on the back part of last year, Justin. Even they only had one playoff game there. I think it was against the Commanders. So I don't really think he's in any injury kind of situation. He's got fresh legs on the road. I think they're going to need to use him to establish that passing game there with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, the sad news with Bucky, obviously he played so good in that Eagles game, and really since he's become the starter. But yeah, it looks like he will probably miss at least 2 weeks just based on these early reports of him being in a boot and in crutches. I know that's been a kind of a thing that they do with players now to kind of be more conservative with their injuries, but I do think he'll miss some time. And with that, Rachaad White will take over with most of the usage. I do think Sean Tucker finds a little bit of a role, but Rachaad White probably will get 80% of the touches, which is totally fine with me. The Seattle Seahawks matchup is not the best one. They are pretty good against the run, but with all the usage he's going to get, and probably this game is going to be super competitive, I think he will be a useful play. So I like Montgomery. I do like Rachaad White and, of course, Breece Hall there. We'll move to wide receiver, where for the wide receivers, I have Quentin Johnston, and yes, he's been a whirlwind. He's been the absolute surprise of the season for me, a guy who went from what looked to be a complete bust, a first-round bust that we could all just throw in the trash, which most of us did, and he's really shown out. He's got the natural talent to be a star wide receiver. He's tall, he's long, he's fast, and he just didn't have the hands. He had no hands until this year. He's been working on it since he got in the league, and now he's their number one guy. And I think he's really pushed McConkey and Keenan Allen to not the back burner, of course, because they're still valuable players for the Chargers, but he is the focal point, I think, of this team. And he's the current wide receiver 5 on the season. And now he gets a matchup against the Washington Commanders, where we just saw Drake London go for 8 receptions, 110 yards, and a touchdown last week. So I'm all over it, and I think he's a must start and might finish as wide receiver 1 this week.
Yeah, Justin, talk about, I'm not going to lie to you. When we look back at the end of this decade, we're going to have asked the question, who was the most improved player from year 1 to like year 2 and 3? Because Justin, I'm going to agree with you. The jokes were endless with him just 2 years ago, his rookie year. I remember he had a few wide open touchdowns thrown to him. And it was kind of they had another coach back then. This was before Harbaugh. And this guy has taken a complete 360. Is now, if you would have told me 2 years ago he's going to have a first-round pick from Georgia at wide receiver in Ladd McConkey, and Keenan Allen was still going to be there, and they were going to be pushed to the back end, like you mentioned, it's going to be because of him, I would have laughed at you. And Justin, now he's back. He has had a great year. It seems like he has scored every game of this season, and we're 4 weeks into the season. It's impressive. I love what he's done. He's highly targeted. I think he scored outside of what that matchup against the Broncos, I want to say, was probably his only matchup he hasn't scored. But still, I mean, he is the guy there. And love him this week against the Commanders. It could be a shootout with Jaden Daniels there being back. For me, I'm gonna go with Ted McMillan. I think now it's week 5. Ted, he does lead the Panthers in receiving yards with 278, but he's got a lot of targets. 35. He leads the team by a mile, Justin, with 35 targets. He's got 18. He leads the Panthers in pretty much everything but a touchdown, right? I think Chuba Hubbard has 2 receiving touchdowns as well as Hunter Renfrow. This week, I think that changes. I do think that Ted gets 2 touchdowns and ties with those players leading the Panthers. I do think that he gets over 100 yards. Now, this is a matchup at home against the Dolphins, which both teams are 1-3. They're capable of catching fire. Both quarterbacks, we've kind of waited for their breakout years. They've had, I guess Tua has had a breakout year that first year with Tyreek Hill, but we're still waiting for that signature Tua year. Now that he doesn't have Tyreek Hill, let's see what he's really about. Can he really win some games? Can he at least make that division, close? But then you had Bryce Young, who needs to take off here, has a good matchup, and Ted is going to be a guy that's going to be targeted heavily. I love this matchup to be another one of those shootouts that we get early Sunday morning there, Sunday afternoon. It's going to be a Tua versus Bryce duo. And I think that Ted is going to be the one that leads number 1 in all of the game.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it. It's going to happen, and I want to be right on the week. And I think you're correct that this is the week that we finally see McMillan have a really good outing. Obviously, he's missing the touchdowns, and I know a lot of people were excited about him last week, but Christian Gonzalez returned in that game and shadowed him. So he had a tough draw against the Patriots, but now you play the Dolphins, where he's going to eat a lot because the Dolphins secondary is probably the worst in the NFL. So I agree. I think it's a great play, and he should be in your lineups. We'll move to the tight end position, where I have Darren Waller. Yes, I don't think I'm overreacting here. What I think, he had a bit of a ramp up period for he retired. He was gone last year, and then he comes back, gets traded to the Dolphins. Weird, crazy news. And then he finds himself here on Monday Night Football getting 2 touchdowns. And with the loss of Tyreek Hill to injury, there's some openings here and some opportunities to carve out a bigger role for him. And I think it's something to note that right when he left the game, Tyreek Hill, Darren Waller was getting targets. And I think that his snap usage will go up. I believe it was still in the 50% area. So he wasn't even on the field as often as I expect he will be moving forward. And he has the Panthers, who just had Hunter Henry have a really good game. So I think that it's a really good matchup for Waller. I think he's on the uptick, and he should be a start.
Yeah, Justin, here's the thing with Darren Waller. That it was only the only week he's played this year. He missed the first 4 weeks, and I don't know. I mean, I like it, but it's one of those picks that I'm just really – because the history. Honestly, obviously, he was fantastic when he was on the Raiders. But then he, retired. I want to say he was out for a year, and I don't know. I really hope he stays healthy. But I would say now that Tyreek Hill is no longer in the lineup, I think that it does give to a different dynamic, right? To I guess establish throwing it to a tight end there. Obviously we see Jalen Waller is still part of that, but you know what? I like the matchup there against the Panthers. And I think that if he's healthy, you know what? I do agree. This has been a weird tight end year. We haven't seen the Laportas. Obviously, Kittle's on IR. McBride and Bowers have been so-so. More so, Bowers has been so-so. McBride's been okay, but they haven't been those top tight ends that you mentioned, right? That are scoring top 5 like a Kraft, a Ferguson. And so I think that if he is healthy, he will. If Waller is healthy, he will return to the ranks because you're right. He could get a lot of red zone targets. No Tyreek Hill, so he just needs to stay healthy. I like it. But obviously, the Dolphins are a little bit, in some ways, a dumpster fire. So hopefully they can turn it around. For me, I'm going to go with Mark Andrews now. Look, I know the biggest kind of elephant in the room is okay, no Lamar Jackson, and you have Isaiah Likely in and out the lineup. We'll see how that happens. But I think that with Cooper Rush, it looks like he's going to be the starter this week against my Houston Texans. I just think that Zay Flowers and some of these other receivers like Bateman aren't really going to get much targets. Maybe Hopkins can get a revenge kind of touchdown there. But I feel like Mark Andrews is going to be the kind of the go-to guy that Cooper, Rush is going to look for. I was going to say Cooper Flag. Look, Cooper Rush is, looking forward to there. And I think that he's going to get 9 or 10 targets, Mark Andrews, and I definitely think he's going to get something in the red zone. I just think that he has that ability to kind of beat a Texans, athletic linebacking crew there. And I think that, there are a little bit some old heads there. I think we have a good corner on Stingley that can cover Zay Flowers. And I think, Hopkins could get, a little tired, but he still could score. I think Andrews has that juice to him that it just feels like he can shred a Texans team at home in Baltimore. So I feel like he could get a touchdown by Cooper Rush. And so, yeah, I like him as my starting tight end of the week.
Yeah, Andrews is an interesting one because 2 weeks ago against the Lions, he looked good. He scored twice, right? Or did he just score once?
He scored once, I believe, yeah.
You got two touchdowns.
Okay.
He was a beast. He was a beast, right? Last week, not as much, but obviously Lamar went down. Things didn't go well for the Ravens. But he still had 7 catches on 8 targets. It wasn't for a lot of yards. The weirdest part of it is his target share went up, but his snap share went down tremendously. He was at 81% of snaps in week 3, and then in week 4 it dropped down to 56%, and that kind of correlates with the return of Isaiah Likely. So I'm interested if that's becoming more of a split now for Likely and Andrews. That could be a concern, but I do see your point that Cooper Rush is back in this lineup. Or he's now in for the first time as their starter.
Yeah.
And he's got to throw to somebody. And I know Zay Flowers is going to pull the Stingley shadow most likely. And Lassiter will be on Bateman. But after that, they really don't have any other great pass catchers. So Andrews could be in line for a touchdown. I think you're hoping that he gets himself in the end zone in this game. But that is for the tight ends. We'll move to the sits of the week, guys that should not be in your lineup. And I have A.J. Brown. Fairly simple. Obviously, he's been extremely inconsistent this year. He's had, 2 games with under 20 yards receiving. He had 1 big game. But overall, it's been very disappointing for A.J. Brown this year. He had 2 games under 10 yards receiving. So it's been really bad for Brown. But he has the capabilities to go big. It's not going to happen this week. He's going to get that Pat Surtain treatment. And I think that it's going to be really tough for him to make a day for himself. So if you have any other options, I think this could be crazy, but like maybe even a Darius Slayton off the waiver wire or a Wan'Dale Robinson. I know the Giants, they also don't pass it as much with Jackson Dart there, but they play the Saints, and I think that there's just more opportunities there. So I think that there's a number of guys you can go for instead of A.J. Brown here, and it hurts me to say that because I am an Eagles fan. I do think A.J. Brown's super talented. It's just a really tough matchup, and he just hasn't been playing that well.
Yeah, Justin. The thing is with A.J. Brown, it's like he always has these random matchups against good teams at home, and he ends up with 100 yards and a touchdown. So, no doubt A.J. Brown has got to be the most frustrating wide receiver in fantasy football right now. But, for me, a lot of people picked him in the second, maybe the top of the third round, and you just got to start him, and it's just so frustrating. I understand why he's a sit of the week because the Eagles can score 28, 30 points, but Jalen Hurts doesn't have over 180 yards passing. So it's so frustrating because if Jalen Hurts could have 230, maybe over just 200, at least 210 passing yards, this will help A.J. Brown. He could possibly get in the end zone, but it's they score 20 to 30 points, but it's 2 Jalen Hurts rushing touchdowns, a Saquon Barkley rushing but then there was a pick 6 or there was a field goal block for a touchdown. That's how they scored 35 points, and you don't hear from Smith or you don't hear from A.J. Brown. So I totally understand why he could be a sit of the week. For me, I would just have to start him every week. And it's one of those things you rather trade him or start him. It's he cannot be on your bench unless he's hurt or he's on a bye. You know what I mean, Justin? So it's just one of those things where I'm just A.J. Brown, you just got to start him every week or trade him. There's no in between. There's no benching, in my opinion. For me, I'm gonna go with Calvin Ridley. He is a no-brainer sit now. I mean, the name is losing value. I just feel in Tennessee, it's not even an 0-4 team like the Jets that can score points, Justin. It's not Garrett Wilson is still, having a good couple games this year. Calvin Ridley is just not doing anything. He'll make a couple good plays a game, but it's this offense cannot get in the end zone. They have Tony Pollard, who I think is solid. They're not using it right. They have, I want to say, is a Romayor. He's number 5 or number 15 there in Tennessee. He's also pretty solid. They have my guy Gunnar Helm. I don't know if he's playing out of UT, but they're just not using this offense right. I think Cam Ward is talented enough to score points, and it's really just not doing it for them. It kind of sucks. So I don't know. I'm really down this Tennessee offense until maybe they just might have to fire Callahan. I mean, they were looking to fire him last offseason, and I think it's time. If they don't put up a fight this week, against the Cardinals, like, I'm sorry, but you just have to find someone else. Like, the season is still young in some ways. You have a young quarterback. Let's not damage it. Let's fire this coach. Let's get someone new, and let's shake up this team. But until then, Justin, I have to say Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, prior to the season starting, I had a list of guys who I said, you're on the hot seat, and I think you probably will be canned by the end of the year. And Brian Callahan was on it. They just don't have any versatility, any super explosive plays on that offense. And there's some talented players on their offense. They have two first-rounders on the offensive line. You have Calvin Ridley, the guy you said, Alec Ayominor. He's been really
Ayominor,
good.
yes, he's solid.
Yeah, you got Pollard and a returning Tyjae Spears, and then you got the number 1 overall pick in Cam Ward. So, like, there's options there, and the reason it's not working, I think, is due to coaching more.
Yeah.
And so with that, you're completely right. I think Calvin Ridley's a must-sit till we see something change or just till we see improvements there because it's just not been good. And Callahan's probably on his way out some point in this season, but I don't think it will be this week, obviously, and I think it'll probably take a few weeks before it changes. One little thing, too, I'll throw in there. They play the Cardinals this week on the road, and Will Johnson, their starting corner who's played really well, he missed the last 2 weeks. I think he's returning this week. He practiced yesterday, so I think that's something to watch. If he plays, he's probably going to shadow Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, last 2 things. On the Titans, I would say they should just clean house and get you like a McCarthy as your head coach. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that I just feel like Cam Ward and like the Cardinals defense is like a must start this week against this team. So, I just, say Calvin Ridley.
I completely agree. They're probably a top 3 defensive play
Mm-hmm.
on the week. We'll move to kickers of the week, so a little bit of a more positive tone. Guys that we think are going to get in between the uprights. I have Will Reichard. They are in Europe for another week, so I think they're going to be a little bit more well-rested, no jet lag compared to their opponents. And Minnesota's always been just a solid enough offense to get you there. They're a pretty conservative team, so they're not always going for 4th and 2s or 4th and 3s like we see with Detroit or Philadelphia. So I think he's in line for another good week of kicks.
Yeah, Justin, I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to also say Jake Elliott has a great matchup too. I think that Denver Broncos are capable of kind of stopping. It's the reason why you have A.J. Brown as your sit, because they might not get into the end zone all that much through passing. So it could be some situations where they do get over the 50, but they just get stopped. Denver just makes a great stop, and I think that Jake Elliott has some opportunities to hit outside of 40.
Yeah, I completely agree. The Eagles are a good enough offense. And it's a good enough matchup to where, they could definitely be stopped. So I think that is great. Dween Nation, those are our starts and sits for week 5 of the fantasy football season. That is what we are a quarter of the way through your fantasy season. And then that's crazy enough to say. But stick with us. Keep trekking the good fight and keep fighting the good fight. And we are still going to be here every week and just about every day, literally on TikTok, posting. I think we have up to like 15 to 20 posts a week. We are that often on there giving you your rankings, starts and sits, game recaps. So all of that. So stay tuned to that. But thank you guys for listening. And Janoah, send us out.
Yo, Dween Nation. This was our starts and sits for week 5. We're so excited for week 5. This is about to be a crazy week, guys. So stay in tune with us. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know if you got some trade questions. I mean, whatever it is, guys. This NFL season is so much fun, and we love interacting with you guys. So check us out on TikTok. Thank you guys for watching. We love you guys. And as always, peace.